All right. Good morning, everybody. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay, please. And there's somewhere on your screen, there's a chat box. All right. Thank you, Marley. I appreciate it. All right. Good to be with you all today. We'll go ahead and get started. We can all join palms as we begin and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And keeping the palms joined. All right, and putting the palms down. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'll be leading us all this morning. I usually like to start off with questions, but the last couple times I've thrown it back to you all and asked you what questions you have. So maybe I'll do that again this morning. We'll take a few minutes just for anyone to share any questions they have that they've been pondering. If you're new to joining us, welcome. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen there. Feel free to type in any question around meditation, Buddhist practice, or anything you're sitting with this morning. And I'll use those, maybe address some of them now, just before we start the meditation, and also after. So any thoughts or questions on anyone's mind at this moment, or anything at all really that anyone wants to share, feel free to type that in now. I always like to give a little bit of time before we start the meditation, just for people to show up and join us. So thoughts, questions, comments, anything you're sitting with at this moment, or anything you're struggling with or challenged with at this moment. Bill, I just want to say thank you for your help with this practice that brings me peace in the midst of this chaotic world. You're welcome, Bill. My pleasure. I say this a lot, but it's this practice is as much for me, if not more, than anybody else. And being able to, lead this Saturdays and Tuesdays for me twice a week for the last 10, 12 years. This is my practice, and I don't see myself any different than anybody else here. I see Amy's comment. I'll get to Greg's in a second, but I see Amy's comment here. Just really grateful for the song of this morning, and for me, it's the same thing. So, if none of you are here, I'm sitting here staring at a screen by myself, and so I'm grateful for everybody as much as you are. This practice is, it's been a life changer for me. And so being able to share it is really a tremendous honor. So thanks, Bill, and Amy as well. Greg, it's minor, but I've been trying to figure out if it's better for me to meditate before or after I have breakfast and coffee. I mean, it's not really minor. I think it's a very valid question and something to think about. I think it's really specific. I'll just maybe make a few comments and you can kind of ponder, um, whatever resonates with you. I know for me, uh, I personally don't like to sit after I eat, um, just because I tend to get, if I don't move after I eat, I tend to get a little lethargic, a little sleepy. So I don't like to have a lot of food in me and then just sit. Um, I have more energy and I'm more awake with less food in me. So that's my personal thing with food. Coffee, I have my coffee every morning and then I sit. So that's just my personal preference. But I do think it's really such a specific thing. My suggestion with, anything around questions like that of when to try things or what practices, just experiment. If you take 1 week and, have your breakfast, have your coffee, and then go sit and see how you are. And then take the next week and sit before you have, your breakfast and coffee and see how you are. So, I wouldn't, not that you are, but I wouldn't stress over it too much. I think it's good just to kind of observe how the body and mind feel. Um, and you can still meditate either way. Uh, and sometimes you may just feel more pleasant than others regardless. So, yeah, I think it's just really a personal preference. Try it out. Marisa, also just feeling appreciative for this opportunity to sit with everyone here. Absolutely. Again, it's just, there's that importance of showing up. I find that to be one of the most critical parts to practice is just showing up. In the Zen practice, there's a great book, Training of the Zen Buddhist Monk by Suzuki, D.T. Suzuki. And, he talks about how you have a schedule in place, but the most important thing is you just have to show up. And, if you don't show up, then you're missing it. So to me, even though we just gather for an hour a day at a time or whatever it is, I think it's good to just continue to show up. You inspire, and I just see Samir's comment, always great to see all these familiar faces and names. I get great comfort, welcome to anyone new. So for someone like Samir, who I know from 10 years ago when we were downtown and he lived in San Diego, he doesn't know any of you personally, I guess, but you all see familiar faces and names on a screen, and that really connects you. The college group shared the other night that even though they have never met each other, they just feel really deeply connected to each other. And my guess is there'll be a time that you do all meet in person, and that'll be really special as well. So, yeah, I do think that we show up not just for us, but for everybody else, all right, Greg, absolutely. Samir, looking forward to the book club. Yeah, Monday night book club, Zen Seeds. That'll be really cool. So check that out at 7:00. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll sit. Bridget, it sustains me. So grateful I found DBT and have been welcomed into the Sangha. Absolutely. I think that's important no matter where you go. Sangha, for those who don't know, is a community of people that practice. I think it's important that we always try to welcome people wherever we are. It starts here, building community, but also, anytime, if you have a business, if you run a store, whatever you do, to try to make people feel welcome, I think is so important. I actually learned that growing up, just seeing my parents always welcome people. It's such a simple little thing, but it really does change. It changes things, so, I'm grateful for all of you, the little comments of welcoming new people, things like that, because you all were new at some point in time. And so while the Dharma Bum Temple eventually became really just kind of this comfortable place for you, each of you entered it at some point in time brand new and you were as curious and maybe nervous or scared as anybody else's first time. So um, it really is, the comfort comes from all of you. Um, so again, I thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with the meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You won't float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. You won't figure anything out whatsoever. The mind that races all day long, it's not going to stop. It won't shut off. We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. So posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continuing this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in, breathing out, follow breath out. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Where's your mind? return attention, focus to the breath. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands, cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddhist Awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He's a human being no different than any one of us who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen and you react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. For most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun, but it's free. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. And that's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it is a practice. And so for me, that's part of why we come together, is just to remind each other that the very first thing the Buddha taught, life is suffering. If you've come here thinking that all your suffering is going to go away just because you start to meditate or learn Buddhist practice, then you're going to be really disappointed. The suffering doesn't go away. It changes. It decreases. At times it increases. But it's part of life. We cannot escape the suffering in our life. We learn to manage it. We learn to deal with it. We learn to decrease it. We learn to embrace it. We learn to see it for what it is. So I've always found Buddhist practice to be just very real. It's just like peeling away layers of perceptions, layers of ego, layers of pride. Peeling all of that away to begin to see life as it is. And life as it is filled with happiness and sadness and joy and sorrow, gain and loss. This is life. So for me, to be able to embrace all of that and appreciate each day as it arises is the practice. So with that, I'll pause. I always like to just open up to questions. If you are joining us for the first time, again, welcome. Thanks for being here. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen, so feel free to type in any questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with, and I'll respond. Samir, I think earlier I might have said New York, but you're in DC, I'm pretty sure, right? But Greg is in New York, I'm pretty certain, because I see your two names together, and then I realized that I think Samir's in DC and Greg's in New York. But when the time comes and we have our Dharma Bum Temple East Coast, you two get ready. All right, questions, thoughts, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. Oh, you are in New York, right, Samir? Well, I said that earlier, and then for some reason I thought DC, but. All right. A poor person wishes they were rich. A rich person yearns for the simple days. A young working person yearns for old age and retirement. An old retired person yearns for the days that they were. That's good. Yeah, I think it's we're always wanting something different. Why is the mind so cruel? I think, I referenced this last time, but and then the young person, a lovely person yearns for companionship. The question of why is the mind so cruel? I shared, I think, last class or time before, the first line in the Dhammapada that says, mind is the forerunner of all evil. And I think it's important for me to embrace this practice. I don't really spend any time trying to figure out why. Coming into Buddhist practice, I always tried to figure things out. And that was actually what caused me so much suffering, was trying to solve and fix everything. And, when I started this practice 18 years ago, it was very liberating to me because I quickly realized that there's nothing to figure out. There's nothing to solve. That there's no secret riddle. So trying to understand why the mind is so cruel, or why this happens, or why that happens, I don't find very useful in Buddhist practice. For people that are very analytical and want answers to everything, this practice is very challenging because you spent your whole life trying to figure stuff out. And so if you embrace Buddhist practice, and that's, Bill, I always, my responses to you are always this way, that, you're someone as well, that you read, you study, you try to figure things out, and trying to figure out Buddhism, I don't think is a healthy approach. Trying to figure out why our mind does things is challenging. I think most important is to begin to experience each moment as it is, and appreciate when we're young, appreciate being young. When we're old, appreciate being old. When we have nothing, appreciate that there's still something we have. When we have everything, appreciate that there's still something we don't have. So I think it's a healthy approach to begin to just settle into what this moment is and not try to compare or analyze or figure things out. Chat, how do we cultivate the behaviors that are consistent with the Eightfold Path? So I'll give a perfect example. And for those who are new to Buddhism and don't know what the Eightfold Path is, let me sum it up just very briefly. The Buddha's first teaching is the Four Noble Truths. He said that the first one, life is filled with suffering. The second one, he said that there's the cause of suffering. And he referred to this as the three poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. So we practice generosity, compassion, and wisdom to overcome greed, anger, and ignorance. The third noble truth is that there's an ending to suffering: liberation, nirvana, freedom from suffering. And the fourth is the path. And this is known as the Eightfold Path. And the Buddha said there's correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. These are the 8 steps. All of those things, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, on Google for free. Just look at it and begin to practice it, because really your entire essence of the entire practice is in that Eightfold Path. So the question of how do we, the simple answer is the only way to cultivate it is to practice them, right? That's the simple answer. But the deeper, I think, practice and realization is to recognize when you're not doing them. So I'll give an example I shared the other day where, the college kids, our college group, they're working on something, doesn't matter what it is. And they hadn't really done what they were supposed to do yet. And so one of them responded to me and said, we've talked about this and we really have plans to do it. And my response was, okay, look at the Eightfold Path. This is life. The first one is the correct view. The correct view, yes, you have the view of doing something that is beneficial for others. The second step is thoughts, right? Views, thoughts. So you have the thought of doing it. You're thinking about doing it collectively as a leadership team, right? The executive team. Speech, you've talked about it. You all discussed it. You all got together last week and talked about how great this would be. So your view is there, your thought is there, your speech is there. The next step is action. That's where it breaks down. The views and thoughts and speech of this idea, action had not happened yet. It had not occurred yet. So it broke down. And then if you don't have the action, then you can't look at the livelihood around it because it doesn't really exist. Then you look at effort. Well, there's no effort because the effort all went into the initial plan and speech and talking about it. Mindfulness, there's nothing to be mindful of because it's not really going. And concentration, there's nothing to focus on because it's just kind of sitting and resting and not moving forward. So you can apply the Eightfold Path. I like to look at the Eightfold Path, and everything in Buddhism really is just, what is your everyday life? It's not about how can I practice the Eightfold Path in Buddhism. It's how can I practice the Eightfold Path in my life? So look at anything that you're struggling with in life and say, what are my views, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration with this situation? And when you begin to see where it's breaking down and where you're not doing it, that's where you have to put your focus. Again, the simple answer, how do we cultivate behaviors, is it's just you have to practice them, right? I always talk about greed, anger, ignorance. You overcome them with generosity, compassion, wisdom. Well, you can't just talk about being generous and compassionate and wise. You have to do them. If you're a greedy person, you can't just talk about being generous. You have to give. If you're an angry person, you can't just talk about being compassionate. You have to practice compassion. And if you're an ignorant person, meaning you think everything is, in your own head is true and correct, you can't just talk about wisdom. You have to practice wisdom by humbling yourself and recognizing that maybe, just maybe, you're wrong. So easy to say, Chaz, but be patient, which is one of the paramitas I always talk about, the 6 perfections of generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom. Be patient as you begin to explore how to integrate the Eightfold Path into your life. So hopefully that's helpful. Bill, I'm a scientist. No, you're not a scientist. You're just a person who does science stuff. So first suggestion is to abandon the label. That might help without even reading the rest of what you're saying, right? Life isn't a simple little box. So abandon that. It's tough to shut off the questioning and answer seeking. Yes, it's tough, but I suggest you do it soon or you're going to continue to drive yourself crazy. I agree that peace with what is now is what I need more of. Good. I'm glad you agree with that. Then take the steps necessary to do that, which is stop defining yourself as a person who needs to figure stuff out. Because as long as you're trying to figure stuff out, you're always going to suffer because there's no answer. So that's the challenge. Yeah, not easy. Other thoughts, questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. Jazz, you're welcome. Hopefully that's helpful. Bill, you're welcome. I get it. I mean, I've been around this practice long enough and I've come across so many different personalities and types of people. And, I've been around this enough to where usually just by the simple way a person asks the question, it helps me understand their approach to Buddhism or what they've read or what they're reading or where their thoughts are at. And, Buddhist practice, for me, I had to win everything I ever did in my entire life. Growing up, that's how I was. That's what caused so much suffering. I had to win the game or the relationship or the job or whatever it was. I had to win. And Buddhist practice, there was nothing to win. You don't win. So it was finally something that I could surrender to and feel like I don't have to win at it. And the analytical approach to Buddhism really is the same thing. Don't try to figure it out. Try to understand your ego. That's it. Your labels, your judgments. That's what this practice is. Other thoughts, questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with? I'm going to end a little early today. So I'll do one more question if anyone's got it, and then we will wrap up. Anything else before I send you off to your wonderful days? All right. Well, I will go ahead and close on that. Then I think I've given you enough to think about for today, and we will end a little bit early. So I'll go ahead and join Palms. We'll do a transfer of merit, and I'll share a few announcements. This was some things coming up. So as we join Palms, again, many merit gained from this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. All right. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 14 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. So thanks for showing up. We closed a little over a year ago now. Chaz, I see your question. There are no plans to reopen yet. Until we feel it's safe, we will remain closed. And I mean, only recently, as of last week, did San Diego go from the worst tier of purple into the second worst tier into red. So up until last week, legally, we were not even allowed to gather inside. Now we're legally allowed to gather inside at 25% maximum occupancy, which to me, the second worst tier, saying you can scatter 25 people in your building at your own risk, to me still says it's not safe. So we have too many at-risk people in this community, too many people we know and love that are getting sick. So we will stay closed until it's safe to open. So those of us who lead, we're not monks or nuns or gurus or masters. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those of you who show up. Every night, we do have our whole schedule is online. Whether YouTube or Zoom, our family group, our teen group, our kids group, the college group, a lot with addiction, recovery programs, always something going on. We have 2 new things that are coming up. We've had our virtual volunteer meetings, which have been phenomenally successful. And out of that, immediately, we have 2 programs that will be kicking off. More info coming soon, but one is kind of a couple different names floating around, but Hats for the Homeless or Knit and Sit will be making beanies, knitting beanies. They'll be training on it if you've never done it, and getting all the supplies and things like that. So that'll be great, a great way to distribute safely through a distribution plan that we're comfortable with, to get some beanies down to people living on the streets. And another one is we'll start, I believe it'll be Sunday nights, not yet, but we'll start a Tibetan practice called Tonglen, which is sending and receiving compassion. So that'll be a new class coming up on Sunday nights, which will be really beautiful. So those 2 things will be coming up soon. Also alluded to earlier, Monday night, we'll start Zen Seeds as a second book study. We're also doing twice a month on Saturdays. Using Pristine Mind. Both books are available at Buddha For You. Buddha For You has also been closed over a year. We appreciate everyone who's been getting stuff from there to help support Temple. So if you need anything, books or whatever, just go to the Buddha For You site. Other than that, thanks for being here. I wish you all safe and well. Please continue to stay home as much as possible, wear a mask, and let's not do anything that would potentially harm others. So I wish you all a wonderful day.